So I want to thank you very much, David, for the introduction, and also Monique, hard act to follow. I'll do my best to entertain you guys for a few minutes. But I want to make it a little bit interactive, and hopefully I can make this thing work as well, with any luck. And get you guys a little bit involved. I'll take any question at any time if I can see you across the glare. But also I want to make sure we're getting some input from the floor as we go along. So we heard from Monique also, international, very many different nationalities. I think we've got a whole bunch of nationalities in the room. It's very gratifying also to see a number of GCC nationals in the room, probably by my estimate about 35% maybe, which is really great. Generally speaking, that's a fairly high percentage of nationals in many of our organizations. Can I get well, first of all, can we have a practice? Can everybody put their hand up? Good, that works. Everybody's warm, got a warm hand. That's excellent. Does everybody know roughly what is the percentage of nationals in your organization? Yeah, great. And can we say, to start with, does anybody have more than 10% nationals in their organization? Yeah, so quite a few. There's a few people with less than 10% nationals in their organization. That's quite good. More than 20%? More than 30%? More than 50%? Even a few more than 50%. That's really impressive. That's really, but you can see, yeah, there's a lot of organizations with not a lot of nationals. How many nationalities are represented in your organization? Monique was saying you've got 40 nationalities kicking around your organization. We've got 63 nationalities in RasGas, 3,500 staff, very diverse. Yeah. How many nationalities are there in your organization? Probably quite a lot. And what is the major other nationality other than your national nationality, obviously, that is in your organization? Again, for us in RasGas, that is people from the subcontinent of India. Yeah, and they are represented quite a large, and then obviously we've got a tail down to, we've got, one Polish person and one Romanian and so on and so forth. The tail is quite long. So how international is the field, and why are we actually interested in this? These are some figures that I dug up. Very interesting reading. If you can, try and find this paper by Martin Baldwin Edwards, 2011. It is publicly available on the internet, about some of the percentages of international staff that are in some of the various countries. These are figures from 2008. They're the most reliable figures available. Obviously, we've moved on 4 years since then, so things have moved on. But what you can see in there, it's perhaps a little bit small. I don't know if I've got a pointer on this. Do I have a pointer on this? I think I'm supposed to have a pointer on this. Never mind. What you can see is that there's yeah? Sorry, which one is it? Oh, it's very small. Okay, never mind. All right. What you can see is that, you've got in Saudi Arabia, it's got the largest percentage of nationals generally in its workforce. Yeah? Only 50% foreigners. And it goes all the way down to Qatar, which has got 94% non-nationals in its workforce. That's an enormous amount of non-nationals that are driving that economy. And how do we cope with those numbers in terms of keeping all of those various different nationalities to a certain degree motivated, happy, stimulated in this region? And there's a whole bunch of dynamics that, again, most of you are probably very well aware of, but I'm just going to touch on a little bit, that are driving these things, that are affecting our issues. Let me get the next one. So what markets do you need to take into account when you are attracting, developing, and working with all your staff here in this region? For example, you've got a national market, which is mainly to do with your national staff. There's not a lot generally of movement of international staff within one country because of the kafala system, because of sponsorship, because of transferring people from one employer to another is not a very easy thing to do. And we have a strong competition in many countries, and I've got some stats on that, with the government sector. The government sector in many of these countries is an extremely popular employer for national staff, for possibly a number of reasons. Does anybody perhaps one of our national contributors have any ideas of why is the government such a popular employer amongst national staff? Job security, very good. Anything else? Hours, working hours. There was a great article in Qatar a few weeks ago about working hours in the government sector, which tend to be relatively relaxed, let's put it that way. And they were trying to encourage the private sector companies to also adopt more relaxed working hours in order to attract more national staff into those industries. A little bit of an interesting dynamic there to try and see if we can do these things. There's also competition with family businesses. Many national families have a family business, greater or smaller, and obviously many people would like to contribute to that family business as much as they can. There's high expectations, and we were talking earlier with some of the other speakers about the expectations of national staff when they join an international or even a large organization in terms of advancement, in terms of remuneration and benefits, in terms of their working conditions and times. And often, the rem and ben, or at least the basic rem and ben for national staff, is regulated by governments. You also have government regulations such as the one we had recently, where the government was paying off lots of debts for people who were indebted. Yeah, that introduces some interesting rem and ben dynamics into your organization. The other one is last year, for example, in Qatar, we had a 60% to 120% base salary increase decreed by the government for all national staff. Complete surprise to everybody, bit of a budgetary impact to many companies. A little bit unexpected. So having to cope with all of these issues. So what else? This is an example. This is the figures, again, from 2008, where the reliable figures are available, of percentage of nationals in the government sector employment. So we've got the lowest there with Bahrain. Only 29% of employed nationals are working in the government sector, so that's going very well. Up to 88% of nationals in the workforce in Qatar are working in the government sector. A very popular employer in Qatar. And as a private enterprise, which many of us are, we are competing with that employer for the top talent, or any talent for that matter, especially when you've got targets to meet. So I've got some other question on nationalisation. It's a big topic, it's a big issue for many of us. And I'd like to ask some of you, does your company, and again I'd like a straw poll, does your company have a nationalisation requirement? We do. Yeah, there's a few people that don't have a nationalisation requirement. And is it that requirement, is it imposed from external? That is, has a ministry or somebody told you that you must nationalise? Or is it something that's coming intrinsic? Can I ask everybody that's got an intrinsic nationalisation requirement, so a self-imposed one, to raise your hand? Self-imposed nationalisation. Can I ask you, sir? Both. How do you mean by both? Sorry.
There's a government regulation and we have our own personal regulation higher.
Okay, higher than what the government is stipulating. What about yourself, please? Same. Okay. Right. So we, again, I can give the example from RasGas. In fact, the industry, which we've got in the oil and gas industry in Qatar, we've been asked by the government to meet 50% nationalisation. Now, the good thing is they haven't given us a time frame for that. So we have a little bit of flexibility. And so one of the things, so what they have done, which has been, actually, I can recommend that for anybody that wants to take this back to your government, is they've asked us to all go away and say, okay, we want you to reach 50%, but tell us by when you will do it. So we went away and did the study, and we said, we think we can do it by 2022. And then the government said, okay, now we will hold you to that. And I think that's fair. Yeah, so it's a very good interaction between what the government is wanting in terms of creating jobs, as we saw from David's slide. We're going to need to create a whole heap of jobs for nationals in the region in the next 10, 15 years from all these young people that are coming through the education system and need to go and find some work somewhere. Yeah, as well as obviously the requirements from our companies for qualified, experienced, capable staff doing the jobs in the organization. And the question also is, what is it that attracts nationals into industry? We've also already spoken about the attraction of the government sector. So what is it that might attract national staff into private sector industry? And is it different from what's attracting expats into your company? And in fact, in many cases, it will be. And you need to take that into account. That introduces all sorts of new dynamics into your renminbi, into your performance, into your development programs that you need to take into account. And we'll try and talk a little bit about some of those. So we've also got the GCC market, or the Middle East market in general. Yeah? There's a great value for employers for people who have already got experience in the Middle East to come and work elsewhere in the Middle East. Yeah? Again, we spoke about movement within a country is quite difficult, but movement from one country to the next, that's quite easy. Yeah? In terms of regulation. And so somebody who's already got Middle East experience will be quite attractive to one of the other countries in the Middle East. Yeah? And so the consequence of that is that many expats are very well aware of what the opportunities and what the renminbi packages are in the other countries around the region, not very far away. And so the competition for talent must balances these packages across the region. You'll find, as you probably have, that renminbi packages and what you get for expats around the region are very similar in the different countries. Not a lot. There's a lot of benchmarking going on. David, you're part of that process in terms of the benchmarking. Yeah. That makes sure that most of the packages and what people get offered as a package is very, very similar. So, I'm going to get the next one going. Yeah. Oops, one too many. So, and then you've got the international labor market, where people are coming from externally, from outside of the Middle East. And how do you get them here in the first place? Issues again with that. There are many people who are not even prepared to move at all. So you've got to get the small percentage of people who are even theoretically mobile. Once somebody is theoretically mobile, they're often prepared to go anywhere in the world. Yeah? And how do you attract them to the Middle East specifically? We've got, again, a specific example in my industry, we spend a lot of time and effort recruiting technical staff, operators, maintenance technicians from Southeast Asia, from Malaysia, from Indonesia, from the Philippines. Yeah. Right now, especially in the oil and gas business, there's a huge project called Gorgon Project, which is happening in Western Australia. Yeah. So all of those potential employees are looking to Australia, so they're going, Australia's a lot closer. Yeah, in terms of time zones. The salary is not that different. Okay, you have to pay tax. Yeah, but they get to bring their families in many cases, and a really great attractor, which we cannot compete with here in the Middle East, is the opportunity for citizenship. Yeah, they get to become Australian after a few years. Yeah, how do you compete with that? We haven't figured that out yet. We're still getting staff, thank goodness, but it's one of those things that you have to worry about. So you've got the Middle East attractiveness versus other countries and regions. Also, quite regularly we get Middle East in the news, especially in places like United States or Europe, where most of the news that comes out of the Middle East is not particularly positive. Yeah, the Iranians are building nuclear weapons, and so there are bombs in Yemen and all sorts of things. And when you're looking at it from North America, the Middle East is all one piece. And we know we're pretty safe here in the UAE and in Qatar. Not a lot happens. But from that perspective, looking at it from that lens, Middle East, not really sure if I want to take my family there. Yeah? Never mind the hot summers. Yeah? Obviously, we're all here, so we've been convinced by somebody to come, which is really great. And then you've got the other comparison, which is the remuneration and benefits. So why does somebody come here? Because it's attractive, and often because it's attractive financially. But the comparison with home is a very important one. Yeah? Especially when they end up with a break in their home country's social security. Yeah, and for some countries that is much more of an issue than others. Yeah, some countries that don't have any social security system, it doesn't really matter so much. The United States, for example. Sorry. But there are other countries where having a break in your social security contributions has huge implications long term. Yeah, and because nobody can stay in the region forever, yeah, you're always going to end up going back home, wherever home is, or however you define home as an individual. Yeah, that break has consequences for that person. And somehow, either that person needs to overcome that, or in some cases, the company can overcome that with the assistance of that individual person. So, some of the implications that we've got, we need to be aware as HR professionals, what are the trends in remuneration and benefits, not only national, for our national staff, but also what are the trends in the region, because we are competing regionally for experienced regional talent, and globally, because we are on the global stage wherever we are trying to attract talent from, wherever they are in the world. Do we as a region, or as a company in many cases, are you leading or lagging the remuneration and benefits package discussion? And I would argue in many cases we are lagging in the middle. Yeah, there's lots of benchmarking going on, and whenever you benchmark, you're aiming for the middle. So how are we going to be able to develop as Rem and Ben thought leaders to attract that talent into the region? And it isn't all about money, as we spoke yesterday in the change discussion that we had. It isn't all necessarily about money. Yeah, but you don't attract somebody with, oh, we've got a great place to work here, and we'll talk about that in a second. Yeah, so we've got attraction in the first place compared with home. Yeah, when somebody is home, we're at home, I've got my infrastructure, my partner's got a job, and my kids have got a school, and my family's down the road, and we're paying the mortgage, and it's all good. So what is going to attract somebody to get out of that socket and move that person across the world? And you need to think about that. Yeah? And then you've got somebody on board, and then you go, okay, then they start comparing themselves with their colleagues. And their colleagues may be nationals, or their colleagues may be from completely different nationalities, and have quite significantly different remuneration benefits packages. For somebody fresh in the region, that can come as a huge shock. I know it came as a huge shock for me when I first ran into this. And sort of going, my goodness, that is an enormous difference in what we're paying this person compared to the other person for pretty much the same job. And there are all sorts of reasons for that, and it all works out, and there's equity and so on and so forth, but you need to get your head around that. And some people have greater difficulty getting their head around that than others. And then you've got, as I said, the nationals, which are a separate story again in terms of remuneration and benefits. And they are also being compared to each other. What else is there in terms of non-rem and ben factors that we can introduce in some sort of structural way that allows that attraction and retention to continue to work for us, for international staff? I don't have an answer. I wish I did. Then I'd probably go and work for a consultancy and make lots of money. But lifestyle is a great one, yes, and absolutely that is one of the attractors for some parts of this region. For other parts of this region, it's actually negative. Schooling, yeah, great. For people with families. So as I say, every individual person has got their own answer for why they are coming to this region. We've got some attraction versus retention, because attraction and retention are not the same thing, even though they're often portrayed as the same thing. That much time, very good, thank you. So what is attracting staff? Again, can we have some suggestions from the audience? What is attracting people to come to your organization? What is your recruitment team selling on the recruitment market? Stability. You are selling stability to staff you're attracting internationally. Can I ask you what your organization is, please? Dubai Executive Council. Okay. Can I have a job? Stability is great. Fabulous. Yes, please.
The experience of working in emerging markets, which is very different to working in your very established markets, especially within many multinational companies.
The gaining of the new experience for that individual as opposed to working in their home country. So it's effectively a development opportunity for that person. Great. Fabulous. That's absolutely an attractor to many people who are career-oriented. Good observation. Thank you. The reputation of the company? Yes. If it's an international company, yes, you can build on the reputation of the international company. Absolutely. How are you going to tell somebody that Abdullah Abdul Ghani and Sons is a good company to work for if they're in the Philippines? Don't know them, don't know what they do. You know, okay, they are the largest vehicle company in Qatar and they have lots and lots of Toyotas, which is really great. But if you're coming from so far away, you don't necessarily know that. How do you sell that proposition into that market at which you're attracting, in this case, vehicle mechanics? You need a lot of them. Yeah, you can't build on a PepsiCo brand, which is worldwide and everybody knows. Yeah, and then you've got what could make these things more attractive to an outside candidate. How do you build that brand? And once you've got that brand, what are the reasons people leave your organization? I don't know. Again, how many people here know some statistics about leaving organization? We've got about 7% attrition at the present time. Yeah. The major reason for our people leaving our company they give is better opportunity. Isn't that interesting? Because we've attracted them to our company by offering them a better opportunity. Yeah. Does anyone have a different major reason? Yeah, please.
They never felt appreciated.
Never felt appreciated. That's an interesting one. That's very interesting. Because that's got nothing to do with remuneration and benefits. And that's got nothing to do with the circumstances of where they live, or their education of their children, or anything like that. Feeling appreciated. We were speaking a little bit about that yesterday in one of the workshops as well. Yeah, in terms of change. Please. Sorry, can you grab the mic?
The threat due to nationalizations. Because most of the expatriates started to think to leave their companies.
The threat of nationalization.
Yes, because of the threat of the nationalization. Yes.
Okay. So I think I'm going to get bumped out of here anyway, so I better go before somebody takes my chair. That's interesting. How do you cope with that? Sorry, can you give the mic back to that gentleman, please? How do your company deal with that?
I don't have a magic answer for that question, because as you mentioned before, nationalization, it could be the company initiative itself, or it is imposed from outside. So since it is imposed, for example, I'm working in the oil and petrochemical sectors in Oman. Mm-hmm. By the law, by the governmental law, we have to reach 90%.
90%?
Yes,
90.
nationalizations. Yes. So we have to do it. We have
ambitious
no other
target.
Opportunities. So for that reason, people start to leave their companies, because by the end of the day, they will be asked to leave.
Wow. Great, thank you very much. Please, Monique.
I have one of my real experts in the back who's the PhD, but just you can correct me later, Rob. But we have a lot of people where I would say probably 80% of the reasons why people leave, and this is globally, and it's no different for the Middle East, is really, you've heard the saying, people leave managers, not companies, and it's what we call manager quality. So we spend an inordinate amount of time. We actually even have an annual, very simple survey of things like, do I talk to my people? Do I recognize my people? Do I give them their performance reviews? So on and so forth. And we do a lot of capability building in that area because we really know the experience of how they feel. Someone brought it up. Do they feel valued? Do they feel appreciated? Is really so driven by that direct manager. And we don't always assume as people are coming up that they naturally have the ability to retain the people and manage them in a way that's motivational, et cetera.
Great, thank you, Monique. As you were saying, and the thing is that you've got your attraction factors which have drawn somebody in, but then people are leaving for completely different reasons. So you've got a total disconnect in many cases between what's attracting somebody and what's keeping somebody. And making some connection with that, I think, would be very valuable as HR professionals to make sure that we've got a reasonable connection between those two issues. I want to close with some of the critical success factors that I've been able to identify in some of the places that I've worked. Is one of them in terms of identifying what is it that you're trying to achieve as a bottom line reason. Yeah? Nationalization is a good example of that. Yeah? Achieving the percentage isn't the reason. Yeah? Why is it that we are trying to achieve, for example, nationalization? What is the actual outcome? And once you know the reason why you're doing it, the strategic reason why you're doing it, in this particular case, is because we need a whole bunch more jobs in this region. Otherwise, we're just going to end up with a lot of people unemployed. That doesn't work. That's not going to get anybody anywhere. Yeah? Also, for some of the remuneration and benefits decisions that you're making, what are you trying to achieve with those programs? Not just the program itself, not just the parking space, that is the recognition, but what is it that you're trying to achieve? There's a great acronym that I've learned many years ago, and it's called WYMIWIG. What you measure is what you get. Yeah? And again, with these things, if you decide what to do and why you're doing it, what's the outcome you're trying to achieve, you can work backwards from that as to what you should be measuring. Tailoring solutions to the segment and understanding what your segment is, whether it's nationals, whether it's expats, whether it's people moving within the GCC. Yeah? And ensuring that and again, Monique was speaking about the employee value proposition. What is it that this employee is getting out of their relationship with this organization? And that they understand that, and it's the total package, whether it's partly appreciation, partly remuneration and benefits, partly personal professional growth and development. It's the package for that individual, and every individual's personal package will be differently in a dynamic way. And to synchronize, as we were speaking just earlier, about attraction and retention factors. I think I've got like 30 seconds for questions. If there is anybody that would like to make a comment from the floor.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Mark. And we do have literally like 20 seconds now.
Sorry.
So I'd like to say thank you very much to Mark for a very interactive session. If there is anybody that has literally one question, and then we'll consider taking that. Get one more question here, I think. Yeah.
Thank you, Mark, for your presentation. I have just one question for you related to people leading the organizations. How do you see the relationship between the leadership styles and people leading the organizations?
Sorry, can you
So that's
repeat
the relationship between
The relationship between
style
people
and
leading the organization and the leadership style.
And the leadership style.
Yes.
From where my understanding is that we need to understand the reasons why people are leaving your organization, not just at surface level, but in depth. Yeah? And once you have a good understanding of why people are leaving your organization, you can analyze, is it something that you want to do something about? And that's you need to do at executive board level, because it's at that level that you can make those sorts of decisions. And if one of your major reasons for people leaving is they're going to better opportunities, then one of the things that you can think about as an organization is, should we be trying to develop better opportunities for people in-house to prevent them from leaving? Yeah? If it's people are not feeling appreciated, then we need to probably work on the frontline leaders, that first level supervisor, that is so critical in terms of giving the appreciation to people, regardless of remuneration benefits. In some cases, people are leaving because they can get more money somewhere else. Yeah, relatively easy answer there. As long as the economics in your business and your industry allow you to do that. If you're not making any money, a little bit more difficult to pay people more money. So I'm sorry that the answer is, it depends.
Okay, well, look, thank you very much, Marc.
Very welcome.
And I'd like to thank Marc, as I said, for a very interactive, very stimulating discussion. I think for me, a couple of key things that came up was really about managing expectations, particularly as the talent landscape changes in the very near future for us in the region. And then also, I think it was very interesting what you said just recently in terms of tailoring your approach to each particular constituency in terms of attraction and retention strategies. So thank you very much, Marc. I'd like to give Marc a round of applause, please.